Hello, and welcome to my life and wellness coaching series. This series is intended to give you effective ways to help you achieve your goals, improve your overall well being, and to create positive changes throughout your life. So, this episode is called The Power of Words. It was one of my early blog entries and is a very personal blog entry from On My Point. But I wanted to share it with you in this format in order for it to resonate maybe differently with different people. So the quote is choose your words wisely, they have power. Now, this phrase is one that I've heard throughout my life, and I agree with it to a certain point. So choose your words wisely, they have power. Words have power, and there's power in words. So our reactions and internal responses to words and phrases are often deeply seated, impactful, and complex. Um, I'll talk about the emotional responses to words and phrases in another entry. But for now, I want to focus briefly on language and the words we experience. Oddly enough, a single word or a simple phrase can have completely different meanings for different people. Though a word or phrase has a dictionary definition and even a generally culturally accepted meaning or understanding, that word or phrase is often personally interpreted wholly differently by people on their own experiences, or depending on their own experiences with what that word or phrase refers to. I often associate certain feelings and situations with certain words and phrases. And I've found this to be a surprisingly common thing among other people as well. Each of us has our own personal version of the language or languages we speak and understand. This version that we've created is created and nurtured through our unique individual experiences. And that ranges from how we learned the words and language to how others around us use those same words and language and the expressions that they use and other forms of communication that go along with the words and the actual language itself. Um, as an added layer to our learning and use of language, there are the feelings and the emotions that come up when certain words or expressions or phrases are used. For example, I'm sometimes at a complete loss for a word that perfectly describes a feeling or situation in maybe like in English. So when I'm speaking English, I'll come upon an idea, I'll come upon a feeling or something I want to express that oddly enough cannot be translated. I can't find just the right word or just the right expression. And it's usually when I'm trying to be very, very clear and very articulate to communicate sort of an esoteric feeling or situation. So, since my personal experience of that feeling and situation happened when I was experiencing it with a different language, like French or German, I would relate more closely to that word or phrase and feeling in French or German. So there may be an expression that is super clear for me that I relate to that's French or German that doesn't translate to English directly. So now, how is this relevant to people who don't speak multiple languages? And how is it important in our lives generally? Well, I think that both questions can be answered with that it's relevant and important because it's about clear, effective, and consistent communication with others and with ourselves. So, the importance and power of words we use during conversations with ourselves are often overlooked. And that's what I'm talking about is those words and phrases we use during our internal conversations and discussions, well, they're very important to pay attention to. But why are they important to consider and to get our attention? Here's a challenge. This may help explain why. The next few times you find yourself considering something and having an internal conversation about it, heighten your awareness slightly or a lot by paying attention to what language you use with yourself, the actual words and phrases that you use with yourself. And now it's not intended to be a criticism of yourself and of your language, but more as an observation. I don't want you to become self-conscious, or at least try not to be self-conscious in this. But observe what words you're using. Now, if you start to become self-conscious about it, you're going to start editing, you're going to start considering, and then just start over or do it at some other time, because you're going to get in the way of yourself, which is so easy to do. And so it's intended to be simple self-observation. So as a starting point, try observing the following. In what situations do you find yourself holding conversations with yourself? So in what situations do you find yourself holding actual conversations with yourself? When do you find yourself doing this? And when you are in conversation with yourself, what feelings and emotions accompany the language that you use? Now, that means for me, I look at how nice or mean I am being with myself. Am I using nice words with myself? Especially if I'm in conversation, I'm like, oh, that was a choice. I have to edit sort of what I'm saying to myself. I've chosen to look at my own words and not be so mean to myself. Because I found that at some points, in some conversations with myself, I was being very mean to myself. Oh, that was stupid. Don't do that. Why are you doing that? Stop it. All these things are dumb, 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 dumb. Well, that's being hypercritical of myself, and it's not really being productive. It's only getting down on myself. So I encourage you to look at, as an observer, whether or not your internal conversations are nice ones or mean ones. They can easily bleed into the rest of your lives if you're constantly down on yourself. How does that verbiage and how does that language then become your outside language? So criticizing myself for making mistakes puts me in the mindset of using those negative critical words and phrases when I actually speak. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to practice positive words, encouragement, all of those good things, being nice to myself first, so that I have experience expressing that with others. Now, I'm a voice teacher. I teach languages as well privately. So how does this relate to teaching? And I'm a life and wellness coach. How does this relate to coaching? Well, being open mentally, emotionally, to rethinking or pivoting which words and phrases to use internally and externally directly impacts every aspect of my coaching and teaching. When my client or my student does not understand what I'm saying or what I'm trying to express, whose fault is that? In my experience in the past, it has been my fault. I as the student and as the recipient of knowledge, somehow is being held responsible for my not grasping the language of my professor or my teacher. It somehow is my fault that I didn't understand. The responsibility was mine to figure out what the heck that teacher was saying. Well, I turn that around. I don't agree with that. I actually vehemently disagree with it. I think it's the teacher's responsibility or the coach's responsibility to figure out how to communicate what we need to communicate to the student. Now, I'm in a unique position. Well, not so unique, but I'm in a great position in that I have individual students that I teach privately. Those students are one-on-one normally, or small groups. When I'm teaching or when I'm instructing or when I'm coaching, I'm able to focus entirely on communicating with that person. If they don't get what I'm saying, then it's my responsibility. It's my job and it's my challenge to say it and express it differently until we have a common understanding. So I need to pivot, I need to change, I need to modify, I need to choose different language, choose different words, choose different expressions. Culturally, everything is different with certain expressions. So it's my job as a teacher, my job as a coach, my job as an instructor of anything or a guide to find out how to communicate effectively. And that doesn't mean putting the onus on the student or the other person to figure it out. It's my job to figure it out. So I think that there are many more aha moments, or my experience is that there are many more aha moments of my students and my clients when I've said something in 6 different ways and one of them goes, ah, the aha moment. Oh, that's what you mean. Because I think a tendency often that I've experienced of teachers and coaches is this: if I don't get it, they repeat what they said, like word for word. Well, how am I going to be getting it? And I find myself doing that periodically when I'm frustrated. I'm just like, well, la da da, the one on the left, the one on the left, the one on the left, your other left. I'm like, why wouldn't I use other words, even for instructions like that? Because I have to think about doing it and I have to consciously change my verbiage. So not only in instructing and teaching in any kind of guidance that I do I try to access language from multiple points, but also when I'm speaking to myself, I practice that and I try to be nicer and modify the way I say things and I discuss things with myself. We all have the ability to choose how to express ourselves to others and to ourselves. So I find these moments to be exciting, fun, and oddly, I guess, satisfyingly challenging. And I take them on with joy and a lot of frustration at times, like good frustration. I like being challenged. So exploring the meanings of words and phrases can be an interesting, frustrating, and yet satisfying challenge that's worth the time and the effort. The words and phrases we use during our internal and external conversations have the power to uplift and support or to undermine and tear down. You have the ability to choose how to wield that power of uplifting and supporting or undermining and letting and tearing down. So I encourage you to always choose to uplift and support yourself and others. So if we end up working together as life and wellness coaches, as a life and wellness coaching series, or if we end up working together in languages, I teach German and French, and sometimes Hebrew, biblical Hebrew, but also in vocal or music instruction. Anything that we work together, I would encourage you to be open to looking at your own language and being open to treating yourself well. So let's grow together, but I encourage you always to continue to grow on your own as well. So for more life and wellness coaching insights, ideas, suggestions, and guidance, I encourage you now to press like, to follow, to subscribe, and to share with your friends. I'd love to hear from you, so send me a message and I will definitely read it and get back to you. And thank you for watching this series. I sincerely hope these videos provide you with at least some effective ways to help you achieve your goals, to improve your overall well-being, and to create positive changes throughout your life. Have a wonderful day and choose to be nice to yourself.